Welcome to Murderous Midwest. I'm Abby.
And this is Eleanor.
And today we are talking about John Wayne Gacy. So this one takes place in both Chicago and Cook County. So John Wayne Gacy, this one I'm actually just going to say, this one has a couple of trigger warnings in it. There are a lot of things that we talk about that might trigger you. So I just want a fair warning there. So let's get started. John Wayne Gacy, born on March 17, 1942 in Chicago, Illinois, not far from here. His parents were Danish and Polish. Gacy. Interesting names.
It's not Polish?
Polish.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like nail polish?
Yep. Okay,
Yep.
yeah, following.
Yeah. They're very odd. So, Gacy had a rough becoming. He had a very rough childhood. He was very close with his father and his his mother, and his two sisters. However, his father was like a raging alcoholic, not a good guy, and he used to beat Gacy and his wife and his sisters with a razor strap, which is essentially a belt for beating children.
Oh, wonderful. So pleasing.
Yeah, I know, right? So, his sister actually says that his sister Karen, she later said that the siblings learned to toughen up against the beatings and that Gacy never cried.
Okay.
So,
boys don't cry, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So he had kind of like a rough
beginning in life.
Yeah. So as he got older, Gacy worked at a fast food chain as a fast food chain manager for KFC. He actually ended up running 3 stores in the end. And he got this job through his father. And so he was a manager during the 1960s, and he became a self-made building contractor and Democratic precinct captain in the Chicago suburbs. So this is around like the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So he became like a contractor,
Okay.
And he was super well liked in his community. He organized gatherings, and he was like a big part of all of the political organizations. And he was also, this one isn't great, but he was in the JC's civic group, which was essentially a prostitute group.
Oh.
Yeah, throughout the community.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Apparently it was back then. I don't know if it's still today.
I would highly doubt it.
I highly doubt it, and I hope not, but who knows. So, yeah, no, he was in that group, and he was actually married and divorced twice, and the people he married, or the women he married, were Marilyn Myers and Carol Hoff, and he had 2 biological children with his wives. So, he was a member of the Chicago area Jolly Joker Clown Club and frequently performed in clown attire. And, he'd dress up as clowns, he'd do the makeup, and he'd go to children's parties and fundraisers, and he'd go to, like, big events. And his clown names, or his alter egos, were known as Pogo the Clown or Patches the Clown.
Okay.
Yeah. And
creepy.
Exactly. And this is also, him being this, like, clown and going to these events also helped him with luring these boys and young adult men in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was known to lure them in through these parties?
He did a couple times. He actually, we'll get to it later, but his main, like, way of pulling them in was to offer drugs or alcohol or sex for money.
Okay.
Those were his big ways, but he did get a few of them through these parties. So being this clown, he actually ended up earning the name the Killer Clown.
Oh, yeah.
That ended up being his nickname, the press gave him, because he would dress up as these clowns and he'd go to these parties. So yeah. So the Killer Clown, sometimes he would, like, lure the victims in with the promise of work through his contracting business, or, drugs, alcohol, sex for money, and then he would get them into handcuffs by saying, he would bring him to his house and he'd say, I'm going to show you a magic trick and I want you to help me with it and I want you to tell me if it's good enough to do at my next party. And so he'd put him in handcuffs and, you know, do the whole tying up thing, and he'd say, oh, it's a part of my act, and then he would, trigger warning, he would rape and sexually assault them and murder them.
Okay.
Yeah. Not a good guy.
How many times did he do it like that? Is there reports on how many times he...
We don't know exactly how many times because he only told us about a couple of his murders.
Okay. So he openly admits to his murders.
It took a lot, but yes, eventually he did say, yeah, I killed these people.
Okay.
But although he confessed to all of them, he didn't let us know, like, how he did all of them. He only told us, like, 5 or 6, you know, how he did it. So there's really no number I can put to that one.
Mm-hmm.
So he would, you know, he'd tie them down and then he'd, most often strangle them with either his bare hands or rope or chain, whatever he could get his hands on, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah.
Awful, but yeah.
And years later, during a conversation with detectives, he was under surveillance and he said, why he got into the clown business and why he chose to be a clown and do the murders and keep up with the clown thing. And
who did he say this to?
Detectives, like police officers. Mm-hmm. He was being questioned. He said he decided to be a clown because clowns can get away with murder.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and that's
as you're in jail talking to detectives.
Yeah, no, this is a direct quote from him. He literally said, "Clowns can get away with murder."
Okay.
Apparently not this one, but
try better next time.
Yeah. So, and then we kind of get into the beginning of how it all started. So his first, this isn't his first murder, but the first time he was convicted. So in August 1967, Gacy sexually assaulted 15-year-old Donald Voorhees, and this was when he lived in, like, the Chicago suburbs. He moved around a couple of times, but most of his killings happened in the Chicago suburbs.
Okay.
So he lured Voorhees into his house.
He lured who?
Donald Voorhees is his last name. So he lured him into his house by promising to show him stag films, which is a type of pornography film. And then Gacy persuaded Donald into having, like, sex with him, saying, quote, "You have to have sex with a man before you can start having sex with women," end quote. Weird, right?
Okay. There's nothing completely normal about this guy.
No, not at all. But everybody saw him as normal. Everybody said, "That's Gacy. He's in our community, and he is wonderful."
Oh, so kind.
Yeah.
Just true businessman.
Mm-hmm. So over the next couple of months, Gacy actually ended up manipulating a lot of other, like, young boys, telling a couple of them that he was commissioned to conduct sexual experiments, for scientific research, and he paid them up to $50 each.
Ew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And so in March 1968, this was a year after, like, more than a year, or not even a year. It was a little less than a year after Gacy sexually assaulted Donald.
Which, did he ever come forward?
Yeah, he did, and that's what I'm talking about right now. So in March 1968, Donald actually finally told his father that Gacy had sexually assaulted him, and his father immediately went to inform the police, and said, "This happened, not okay."
Great.
You know, and
great move for that dad.
Exactly, right? And the police, unlike some of our other cases we've researched, they immediately took action.
Right. Oh,
immediately went to Gacy, and they ended up charging him with performing oral sexual intercourse on Donald, and then he also got charged with attempted assault of 16-year-old Edward Lynch. And the assault with Edward happened in between the month, like 9 months? A little less, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, around 9 months. the 9-month period before he got in trouble, basically.
So he came forward during the investigation?
Yeah, Edward did.
Okay.
Yep. And Gacy originally denied all of the charges, and he demanded that he take a polygraph test or a lie detector. And it ended up showing that Gacy was super nervous. Like, he was super nervous when he said, like, I have not done any of this. Like, I haven't done any of this. This is not me. This is not my fault. It showed that he was super nervous, and so they were like, you're suspicious. And so Gacy actually ended up publicly claiming that he had no part in either accusation, and he was convicted of sexual intercourse with a minor on May 10th, 1968, and sent to 10 years in prison.
Okay.
Yep. He actually was only in jail for 18 months.
Oh.
Yeah. No, he got out for, like, good behavior.
Oh, yeah, because, sexual predator is such good behavior.
Yeah. So he was released on parole in the summer of 1970, and he was actually arrested again the following year after another teen accused Gacy of sexual assault.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
What was that teen's name?
I could not find it.
Okay. We just know that it was a third teen.
Yeah.
After.
And so, yeah. So the charges actually ended up being dropped because the boy didn't appear to trial.
Okay.
The boy didn't come to trial, and there's rumors saying that Gacy paid one of his coworkers to blackmail this child to not come to court.
Mm.
But that was never proved. There are a lot of people who
yeah, but there's no way to prove that.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite actually, unless the person comes forward.
Yeah.
Which no one wants to come forward and aiding and abetting a literal serial killer.
Yeah. At the time, they didn't know he was, but,
Now nobody's going to come forward and be like, yep, that was my good friend Gacy.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So, the middle of the 1970s, around then, 2 more young males actually accused Gacy of rape. And he was questioned by police about the disappearance of other people, like other boys that had gone missing. And Gacy actually referred to the period of life, early 1970s, mid 1970s, as his cruising period.
Oh, okay.
And this is actually when he committed most of his murders.
Oh yeah, just cruising on down Main Street.
Yeah, no, so most of his murders were committed between 1972 and 1976.
Okay.
And he considered this time period as his cruising years. And this is when he did the most murdering.
When did he say that?
When did he say what?
Like, that was his cruising years. When did he say that?
Upon being questioned.
Okay.
When detectives were asking questions, during his trial, he repeatedly referred to it as his cruising years.
Okay, yeah.
Yep, because that's...
Yeah, cruising on down.
Yeah.
Just stabbing people left and right.
Right? So, on December 11th of 1978, 15-year-old Robert Heist went missing, and it was reported to the police that the boy had been last seen by his mother at the drugstore where he worked. And the last time that this boy talked to his mother was on her birthday. He called her, said, "Happy birthday, I love you,"
Aww.
and hung up. Yeah.
Aww.
Yeah. And that was the last known altercation between them. And she said that he had went out to meet Gacy to discuss a potential construction job with his contracting company. And then 10 days later, the police got a search warrant to search Gacy's house. And this house was in Norwood Park, Illinois, which is right around, it's one of the suburbs right outside of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And they uncovered a ton of evidence, and this was like the plunge into everything.
Okay, finding out everything.
Yeah, so...
A ton of evidence for just this murder or a lot of murders?
All of them.
Okay.
This was...
So, like in the Anthony
case.
Sawell case, the last episode that we did, where they
Yes.
all of a sudden just, also went on a wide search through the whole house.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, this was
Get
the
sloppy.
Robert Heist... Yeah, exactly. The Robert Heist case was the one that screwed him over.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely. And so it was later discovered that Gacy had committed his first known killing in 1972. He confessed to it and said, yeah, I killed this guy in 1972, and it was actually 16-year-old Timothy McCoy.
Oh.
His first murder was a 16-year-old. So after bringing him into his home, getting him into his home, he murdered him. And it was found that McCoy was traveling from Michigan to Nebraska, and Gacy, took him on a sightseeing tour of Chicago. He took him all around and, showed him all the major places, and then he actually brought him back home with the promise of bringing him to his bus stop in the morning. He said, hey, I'll take you on a tour of Chicago. Come to my place. Come stay the night at my house. We'll take you to the bus stop in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so they...
Did his family know that, was he connected with the family to the point that he was like, oh, I'm going with this guy to Chicago?
Nobody knew about it.
Oh. Go in a group.
Yeah, exactly. Never go into a stranger's house.
So, yep, yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So, and Gacy actually, he claimed that he woke up the following morning after they went back to his house, and he actually found Timothy McCoy standing, in his doorway, his bedroom doorway, with a knife in his hand.
Mm-hmm.
And Gacy says he jumped up out of his bed, and McCoy raised both his arms in a gesture of surrender, but he tilted the knife upwards, and he accidentally cut Gacy's arm. And Gacy said he twisted the knife from his wrists, banged his head on the bedroom wall, kicked him against his wardrobe, and walked towards him. And then he also said that McCoy then kicked Gacy in the stomach, which caused him to double over, ouch.
So he fought back.
He fought back. And then Gacy said he grabbed McCoy, shouting, "Mother effer, I'll kill you." He then wrestled McCoy to the floor, stabbed him repeatedly in the chest, and he also claimed that he washed the knife in his bathroom, and he walked into the kitchen and saw an open carton of eggs and a slab of unsliced bacon on his table, and McCoy had also set the table for 2 people. So he had walked into Gacy's room to wake him up while, just carrying the knife without thinking about it, absentmindedly just carrying a knife, and he was making breakfast.
Oh my gosh, this poor guy was just wanting to say thank you for taking me to Chicago.
Yeah. So that was his first murder. And so Gacy said he buried McCoy in his crawl space underneath of his house.
Also, what is people and burying bodies in crawl spaces?
I don't know.
This is the 3rd one that I've heard about that.
Yeah. No, it's
very common.
It is a very common.
And what's with everyone having our crawl space? That's a serial killer.
Most houses do.
Yeah.
Though, most houses have a crawl space. Whether you can access it is another story. But, my house, we have a crawl space underneath of it so we can get to, the piping and stuff. So, most houses do have a crawl space underneath of it.
But hide it there and you get a search warrant. Guess where people are going to check first?
The crawl space. Yeah. Yeah, no. The crawl space wasn't the only place that he hid bodies. 26 were underneath of his house.
Gosh.
The other 8 were hidden around his property.
Whoa. Well,
Yeah.
Back up. How many people?
In total, it could be more. We don't know. It could possibly be more, but in total he killed 38. Or 33. Sorry, 33.
33.
33.
Okay. Moving
33
on.
young boys. Yeah. Awful person. Not a good person at all.
No.
Mm-mm.
Opposite.
And yeah, so Gacy said that immediately after killing McCoy, he felt totally drained, and noted that as he stabbed McCoy, he listened to the gurgulations and gasping for air, that he had experienced an incredible sense of pleasure. He also added, "That's when I realized that death was the ultimate thrill."
That's
Yeah, no, so not good. And that's a direct quote. That's when I realized that death was the ultimate thrill. That is a direct quote. Those words came out of his mouth.
That's gross.
It is disgusting.
Continue.
So
this, lovely story.
Yeah, right? So Gacy, actually, he also described his second murder. And he said the second time he committed the murder was around January 1974. And we actually don't know who this victim is. We never identified. It's his body. We know it's a male. We know it's young, in his 20s, but we have no clue who it is.
Okay.
Yep.
That's honestly awful for his family.
Yeah. So Gacy, he said he strangled him and placed the body in his closet before burying it. And he later said that bodily fluids leaked from the victim's mouth and nose. And staining his carpet, his poor carpet.
His poor carpet. Oh my gosh.
And he said afterwards, after that murder, he would start stuffing sacks and rags and sometimes the victim's own underwear in its their mouth.
Gross.
To prevent it from leaking.
Uh-huh.
That's
nasty.
It's disgusting. It truly is. And so
that was the wrong visual picture that I needed painted for me today.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no. If you want
a
really gross picture in your mind.
I'm good.
Yeah, no, totally not cool. And after a lengthy period of police surveillance and investigation, they're investigating, trying to find all the evidence that they can. They found a ton of trenches underneath of his house in his crawl space. And he eventually confessed to killing 30 people, and over time he confessed to 3 more. So we know for sure that he confessed to 33.
Whoa. Was he put on death row?
Yes. We will get to that later because
Okay.
that's a big thing. So, and over the years, there's been a lot of concerns that he might have been responsible for other deaths too, and they don't know. It's kind of hard to investigate somebody who's dead.
Right, it's difficult with how many missing reports of people that there are out there.
Exactly.
Especially during this 70s time with multiple killers out at once.
Mm-hmm.
It's really hard to distinguish between who is who.
Yeah. And so, more recently, in the past couple of years, actually 2017. So this is
that's really recent.
Yeah, no. This is a full, at least, 30 years? 40 years after all of this happened. Cook County used DNA evidence to identify one of the victims, and that victim was known as victim number 24 for a really long time, and it was actually in 2017 identified as 16-year-old James Jimmy Byron Hackinson.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so this is actually one of, they kind of decoded it.
Okay.
How he did it. This isn't exact, but this is
how they think
it happened. So it says in 1976, Hackinson left his home in St. Paul, Minnesota, and then he came to Chicago to begin life in the city. Big dreams in Chicago. And on August 5th, he called his mother and said, "Hey, I'm in Chicago." He called his mother, let him know that he made it. And police actually think Gacy killed him close to that time that he killed or he called his mom. So maybe a day or so. Yeah, sad. And in 1979, Hackinson's mother had contacted the police to find out if her son was one of Gacy's victims.
Oh.
So, she called him because she knew that he went missing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never known, because they hadn't identified the body until 2017. So,
right.
They didn't know. So she calls the police and says, "Hey,
There's
Did this man kill my
I
son?
saw this man. It's about the type of my son's about the man that he likes to kill.
Yeah.
He's been missing.
Well, she didn't know that he had any contact at all with Gacy.
Right.
She just knew that he was in Chicago. He was around the age
that his victims were.
Exactly. Yeah. So she calls them and says, "Did this man kill my son?" And they said, "We don't know." Really hard to hear as a parent. Obviously, I'm not a parent, but even still,
we're able to have a certain level of empathy to just be able to realize that.
Exactly.
Family plays such an important role, and to lose a child.
Mm-hmm. So she said, "Hey, did this man kill my son?" And they couldn't find anything because she didn't have any dental records. So they couldn't identify him without the dental records. And she actually ended up dying in early 2000s. So she never found out.
Oh, that's awful.
No, I think that was one of, like, the hardest, like, not necessarily victim murders I've had to think about, but, like, the families. That one's really hard to imagine because, like, she died without knowing. And, yeah, so they figured out that it was him. And so his trial, we're going to go into his trial. So his trial began on February 6th, 1980. And he confessed to the crimes. The arguments were focused on whether he would be declared as insane. So they were like, "Oh, are you insane?" Not. That was most of the trial. Long story short, he actually ended up getting, this isn't funny, but, it's well-deserved. He actually ended up getting 12 death sentences and 21 natural life sentences.
Oh.
Yeah. So,
no way of getting out of that in 13 months.
He totally got what he deserved.
Did he get, was he declared criminally insane?
No.
Oh.
They declared him that he was sane. They said, "You are sane, you're going to court, you're going to get punished for this."
Oh.
Yeah. And so while he was in prison, he was imprisoned at the Menard Correctional Center. And he started, like, getting really into art and painting.
Save big money at Menards. Yeah, continue art.
Yes.
I'm sorry. That's all I can think about. I can't take it seriously.
Oh my gosh, right? That's all I could think about when I found that out. So he started painting, and a couple of his paintings are actually showed at the Chicago Art Gallery.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of his paintings showed Gacy as Pogo the Clown. And they went off for auction in Shropshire in the UK. And 3 of the paintings, I'm Pogo the Clown and They Call Him Mr. Gacy, those 2 sold for 4,000 euros. England, they use euros, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4,000 euros and 325 euros. And I couldn't find what the third one was sold for. But 8 of his other pieces never were auctioned. Nobody wanted to buy them.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't personally want to support them. I mean, I would like to see them.
Yeah, no. They're very weird.
Okay.
They are very weird.
Something that I'll definitely want to look into.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you, like, have a minute or two, look them up, because they're weird. So his execution, he was imprisoned at this Menard Correctional Center, and he was in there for like a decade and a half. He was in there for a while, and so eventually, because this execution, it kept getting pushed back. Mm-hmm. It seems to be a common thread. Executions get pushed back.
I mean, it sounds like, from what I've seen about it, because I heard about this one and he got this one pushed back. It seems like in the legal system it's pretty common.
Yeah, which is very weird, but oh well. And so, though he had confessed to, like, all of these murders, 33 murders, he still denied that he did it on death row.
Really?
A couple years before.
Even though they found all the bodies in his house.
Yep.
And he didn't have a roommate or anybody.
He denied being guilty of any of the charges, and he even had a 900 telephone number set up with a 12-minute recorded statement declaring his innocence.
He really was just like, I will not die.
He was going for it. And so on the morning of May 9th, 1994, he was transferred from the correctional center to Stateville Correctional Center in Crest Hill to be executed. And his final meal, he was able to have a private picnic with his family on the prison grounds. And for his final meal, he had, I think this is funny, I don't know why, he had a bucket of KFC, a dozen fried shrimp, French fries, fresh strawberries, and a Diet Coke. That was his final meal.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I was just like checking. I was like, wait, did I just hear that right?
Yeah, so, and then he had all that food before he observed prayer with a Catholic priest. A priest came and prayed over him. And then he was escorted into the chamber to get his lethal injection.
Oh, so he chose lethal injection?
Yep.
I don't think the chair is legal in Illinois.
It is not. I don't believe so. So, yeah. Eventually, after his trial and during like his death, they actually ended up dismantling the house. They took the entire house down, ripped it apart piece by piece, looking for every single body they could possibly find.
Any evidence of anything?
They didn't find any more in the house, and there's actually a picture, you can find it just on Google, of Gacy. He drew out a map for the police of his crawl space. He knew exactly where every single body was located.
And he didn't commit any of the murders.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. I am 100%.
I find it odd that they didn't declare him insane. Because that definitely seems like something's wrong.
I'm honestly going to look into that. Maybe he had some really good lawyers on the other side that were like, he's not insane.
Right. And so I actually found a list of all of the known victims. So, and they're all of the known victims are between 14 and 20. All of these known victims. So here's the list. Timothy McCoy, age 16. John Butkovich, 18. Daryl Sampson, 19. Samuel Stapleton, 14. Randall Reffett, 15. Michael Bonin, 17. William Carroll, 16. Jimmy Hackinson, 16. Rick Johnson, 17. William Bundy, 19. Michael Marino, 14. Kenneth Parker, 16. Gregory Godzik, 17. John Zick. Sorry, that one's really hard to pronounce. John Zick, does that look like right? Zink, whatever. John Zick, 19. John Prestige, 20. Matthew Bowman, 18. Robert Gilroy, 18. John Mowry, 19. Russell Nelson, between the age of 21 and 22. Robert Winch, 18. Tommy Bowling, 20. David Talisma, 20. William Kindred, 19. Timothy O'Rourke, 20. Frank Langdon, 19. James Mazzara, 20. Robert Prest, 15. And several more bodies were found between the ages of 20 and 35, and they are still unidentified to this day.
It's like for every one of the names looking at this list,
it's a big list. It's not a small list. It is a big list.
It's huge. It's a decently sized paragraph.
Yeah. And so I have a couple little fun facts about our Gacy here. So he managed 3 KFC restaurants, and it is actually believed he could have accomplices. And, that's just some of the things.
I've heard some little side murders saying that they may have worked with him.
Exactly. And so that is all we have for today. Comment below what you think. We'd love to hear it.
If you have any new information that you would love to tell us that you found out about him.
Exactly. And, there may be other things that come up in other podcasts, but this is all the time that we have for today. Thank you for joining us. Bye.